Hello everyone, this is Nerd Phil, and today I'm going to be showing you how to smash your victory through Standard and Magic the Gathering with Gruul Smash! So gather up and let's smash! So shout out to Owen4510 for this episode. This episode is catered directly towards you. So leave your comments below and I'll be sure to change my schedule just for you guys. So now that we're about 3 weeks into the new standard format with the arrival of Ravnica Allegiance, we have to figure out the best way to beat the meta decks. Now we all know what the meta decks are. Soul-type midrange, Esper Control, Esper midrange, mono red burn, mono red aggro, Nexus of Fate decks, Azorius aggro, and there's probably a couple more I'm missing. So what's the perfect way to beat these meta decks? Well, I think midrange is the perfect way to go. You can get aggressive early and you can stabilize the late game, making it really difficult to figure out how your opponent can beat you. So let me show you how I'm playing Gruul differently from the rest of the internet. 4 Landware Elves. If you're playing a green creature deck and if you have 3 drops, you should be playing this. No other comments necessary. 4 copies of Merfolk Branchwalker. Now we're not always going to get our turn 2 3-drop with Landware Elves, so we do need a 2-drop slot to fill in that awkward gapness. And Merfolk Branchwalker is the perfect card for that. It finds you the land with Explore and it digs your deck faster for that land if you're not getting it. Now I know everyone is replacing Merfolk Branchwalker with Growth Chamber Guardian, especially if you're trying to be more aggressive, and that's fine and all, but we have bigger creatures to play, so we need to dig through that land or find it immediately. You're more likely to keep a hand that has 2 lands and a Merfolk Branchwalker than 2 hands with a Growth Chamber Guardian. Now once Merfolk Branchwalker rotates out of the standard format, we'll probably lean more towards Growth Chamber Guardian, unless there's a better 2-drop that they release in the future. 2 copies of Crawl Harpooner. Now I originally didn't put this card into my deck, but once the meta started having a bunch of flyers, this card became really good. There's a bunch of good flyers to get rid of. There's Enigma Drake, Crackling Drake, Niv Mizzet, Angel of Grace, Lyra Dawnbringer, Tempest Djinn. There's a whole lot of flyers in the format, and even Mono Blue Tempo is still a good standard deck to play. But we only need 2 creatures in our graveyard for this to kill most of the flyers. 4 copies of Ogre Spellbreaker. 3 abilities that we can play on turn 2. Yes, please. This card does so much in the format right now. It stops Settle the Wreckage. It has Trample with potential haste, which is always a stupidly deadly combo. And it slows down time against mono red burn, which is so crucial against mono red burn. Buying all the time you need against that type of deck is so important. 4 copies of Thrashing Brontodon. A 3/4 body as a 3-drop is really good stats, and it has to specifically be Lava Coil to be removed. Shock and Lightning Strike will not do the thing. It also gets rid of enchantments and artifacts, and there's just a buttload of enchantments and some artifacts that we really need to get rid of in this format. Search for Escanto, Wilderness Reclamation, Rhythm of the Wild, Treasure Map, and weirdly enough, Primal Amulet? Yeah, thanks Todd Anderson. I know some people are brewing with the idea of Reclamation Stage because it gets rid of the enchantment the moment it comes out and you don't need to tap mana for it. But a 2/1 body is not the stat we're looking for when we're trying to turn our cards sideways. 2 copies of Jaylight Rangers. Playing this turn 2 is really good, and I know drawing 2 lands sucks from time to time, but drawing 2 lands and getting rid of 2 bad turns is a price I'm willing to pay for this card. Now you could probably switch the numbers and playing 3 copies of Brontodon and 3 copies of Jaylight Ranger, but I just personally like having 4 Brontodons. 2 copies of Nullhide Ferox. Yeah, playing this turn 3 usually spells doom for the other character. And they also have to pay 2 extra mana if they want to get rid of it. I'm willing to let them pay 6 mana for a Ravenous Chupacabra or Voracious Contempt. You can also go ahead and pay 5 for that Mortify. More than happy to do that. I know this big creature can be chunk blocked because it doesn't have trample, but them losing a creature every turn is still pretty good for us. This card also trades with Carnage Tyrant, and we only take 1 damage as a result. That's a really good price I'm willing to pay to get rid of Carnage Tyrant. Now I only have 2 copies of this particular card because I'm playing more non-creatures than most Stompy decks, and hopefully you'll understand in a second. 3 copies of Rekindling Phoenix. Yeah, we all know this is a really good card, right? Basically, they have to use 2 cards to remove it, or they have to specifically use Contempt, Settle the Wreckage, Lava Coil, and that's about it. Yeah, this card is just really good all around, and having flyers is always really good in this deck. Finally, 4 copies of Carnage Tyrant. Yeah, this is a stupidly good card. We all know that. It's been in the format forever. I know it's being replaced with Hydroid Krasis, and because Hydroid Krasis is also a stupid good card, but Carnage Tyrant still fills a really good slot in our format, and we're not playing blue, so we're going to stay away from Krasis. I hope you bought these for $15 a piece like I did. So now let's get to the non-creature spells I was talking about. 2 copies of Shaper's Sanctuary. This is a really good 1-drop card, and it's also worth playing instead of land elves in certain situations. Remember how all the spot removal cards I was noting earlier that specifically say target? Yeah, now we get to draw for these cards, so even if our creature dies, we get to draw a card out of it. And this deck really struggles with draw every now and then, so having this card as a 1-drop is a really nice slot. Shaper's Sanctuary is also really hard to remove since it's an enchantment, so it's just a really good card all around that you should be playing if you're in green. 4 copies of Assure Assemble. Assure Assemble? Are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. Guys, price doesn't determine the value of how good a card is. This card is actually stupidly good in this format right now. Now, I know it's not as good as Heroic Intervention or Blossoming Defense like we had before, but it's a good substitute and one I'm willing to play right now. It saves your cards from a lot of creatures. I'll go over them again just in case. You got your burn spells like Lava Coil, Lightning Strike, you got Chupacabra, you got Mortify. You can actually save your biggest creature like Carnage Tyrant or, you know, your Phoenix if they're playing a board wipe, and it's okay to save your biggest creature or the creature that matters. It's actually really crucial. It also means when you attack or when you block, you're not trading because your creature also gets indestructible until the end of the turn. Now, I know you're going to play the Assure side way more than Assemble, which is, of course, what's happening to me right now, but sometimes you will need Assemble for that extra body that chips in for that last point of damage you need. Now, I know you could be playing burn spells instead of these defensive spells because you're red and you want to be more aggressive, but sometimes it's just more important to save your creatures and just keep swinging and swinging with bigger creatures than it is to get that last point of chip of damage in. Now let's go over the Planeswalkers that I'm using right now. 1 copy of Karn, Sign of Urza. Now I know I said this card really struggles with draw, and this card single-handedly fixes that problem. You're basically getting a card every turn, and it's really hard to get rid of a 6-drop loyalty Planeswalker the moment it comes out, so it's just really good. Even 1 or 2 uses out of the cards is worth it. Sometimes you'll need the extra body, but more than not, you're just searching for your big creatures. 2 copies of Domri, Chaos Bringer. Chaos Bringer? Kind of a weird card, but whatever. Now, again, remember how I said 6-drop loyalty is hard to get rid of? Same reason we're playing this guy. This card ramps into your bigger creatures, and even your smaller creatures get bigger to join the Smash Party. No, not that Smash Party. Different one. You can also use the minus ability to get 2 creature cards right away, potentially. Now his ult isn't great, but getting a creature every end step is still pretty good. And with Domri, you can potentially turn 4 Carnage Tyrant. How? Well, turn 1 Land Elves, turn 3 Domri, Chaos Bringer, and then turn 4, both using Llanowar Elves and his +1 ability, you got a Carnage Tyrant with Riot, which really means Carnage Tyrant swinging with haste to the face. Now, even though you're not going to always get this stupid combo off every turn, giving a Phoenix or even a Thrashing Brontoton or No-Hide Ferox haste or making them bigger is just pretty good. And finally, 1 copy of Vivian Reed. This card is a really nice draw engine. It also gets you the land just in case you're needing it. Most of the time you're probably finding a creature at this point, but sometimes you'll need the land. It also gets rid of artifacts, enchantments, and flyers the moment it comes out. Yeah, it's like Carl Harpooner and Thrashing Brontoton made this card. And if you ult, you basically won the game. Like, there's nothing your opponent can do to basically get out of that situation. Now, you don't need to play Planeswalkers for this deck to be swinging with creatures, but it's just really nice to have a backup draw engine and just to get your bigger creatures out as fast as possible. And let's cover our land bases. We're going to be playing 21 lands. Oh, wait, 21 lands? With 4 Carnage Tyrants? Are you sure? Yes, I am sure. With the draw engine and the explore mechanic, you'll be just fine. So let me show you the lands that I'm playing right now. 5 mountains, 4 rootbound crags, 3 sun petals, and sun petals is just for the assemble part of Assure Assemble. Again, sometimes we do need it, so just playing 3. 8 forest, and 1 Field of Ruin. It's actually really important for Field of Ruin to be in this deck because we got to get rid of Ascanta and enchantments that are enchanted on land. It also helps us thin out the deck just in case we're getting flooded. Now you can change 4 of these forests into 4 Stomping Grounds. I just don't have those Stomping Grounds right now on me at the moment, and well, you don't really need it, but if you have them, certainly do it. it's good to have that extra red mana base. You can also take out Sun Petal just in case you don't think you'll ever be using Assemble, but every now and then I find that having that Sun Petal is actually coming pretty clutch. Now let's go over our sideboard. We got 3 copies of Pelt Collector. This card is good against aggro matchups, and it gets big really fast. It also makes your trades with your bigger creatures seem pretty reasonable. 3 copies of Thorn Lieutenant. This is also a really good card against aggro matchups. It leaves a body behind when it's targeted, and even if you're flooded, having that 6 mana pump ability makes this creature really good. We got 1 copy of Coral Harpooner. Now I know we already have 2 in the sideboard, but this is good against aggro matchups because it's a low creature cost, and it's good to have that extra one just in case they're playing a lot more flyers than we originally expected. 4 copies of Rhythm of the Wild! Now this card is good against both control and aggro matchups. It's good against control because you get to swing your creatures faster than usual, and it's good against aggro because you get to make your creatures just a bit bigger, but probably bigger enough to make them stop attacking you. I've debated mainboarding this, but I like it in the sideboard because it really confuses their opponents because they probably don't think you're playing it if you don't have it in game 1. In games 2 and 3, you can really give them a nice surprise. And finally, 4 copies of Cindervines. Now, I'm gonna be real, this is just a big middle finger to Nexus of Fate decks. Like, Magic was invented for interaction, for people to play against each other. Magic was not invented for one person to play solitaire and one person to watch. That is the most boring thing ever. I still consider playing against control interaction, but Nexus of Fate, no. Now this card, they will maybe ignore 1 copy of Cindervines on the field, but they really shouldn't or won't ignore 2 copies. It does a lot of damage when they're trying to combo off, and they can't combo off in time. It also blows up Will This Reclamation or Gift of Paradise that these decks are playing. This is also a pretty good sideboard against control because there'll be times where they played 3 non-creature spells in a single turn, and yeah, doing 3 to 6 damage to themselves and it's not your turn, yeah, they're not going to ignore that. So let me know if you decide to play this deck on paper or in Magic Arena, and let me know how you do. What, am I going crazy or am I just a new professor? And please, let me know if you modify it and make the deck better. I would really love to play your version as well. Now I'm planning on doing a budget version of this deck because I know Carnage Tyrant is still a little expensive, even though it's still going down. Nullhide Ferox went up a little bit. Rekindling Phoenix is going down, but it's still expensive. I get that. So I'll be doing a budget version if you guys really want me to. So let me know what you're playing in Standard right now, especially if it's your own deck creation. I really like to see how people are a bit more creative instead of copying the typical meta decks that are, you know, all over the internet. I want to see your version and your unique way of playing Magic. So in my next video, I'll be going over board games to introduce to your friends that, you know, aren't quite into the board game scene, or board games that you want to get everyone involved in and it's just fun to play your first time around, or even with newbies. And I promise it's not Settlers of Catan. There are some low-key radar ones that you probably haven't heard of. So I'll see you next time for your Nerd Fail.